Okay, we're recording now.
15th of April 2021, Unit 8, FMP pitch, Lewis McIntosh.
Hello, my name is Lewis McIntosh, and today I'm going to be discussing my pitch for my FMP project, my direct address film. And as you can see, I made this PowerPoint myself, and here are the key stuff I would like to discuss about my upcoming project. For starters, I want to explain what exactly I want to do for the project. Well, what I want to do is that it's going to focus on a character named Jack Brown, who has a multiple split personality disorders inside his head. And unfortunately, it basically explains why exactly it was caused to begin with, like how exactly he got these split personalities, but also, so I want to focus on at least 3 specific split personalities who want to take full control, because so far Jack's the only person who fully takes control of his bodies and doesn't let his split personalities. And but thankfully each of the personalities do have their own unique traits in order for them to stand out above the rest. But for instance, Jack is very kind and but is also very smart compared to the rest of them, whereas Kevin, who is a very tough kind of character, and he's very grouchy and who has a very growly voice and doesn't like to be messed with by anyone, including Jack. And then Simon is much more caring compared to the other personalities, because really he just wants to take control of the body in order for him to be free, and because unfortunately he is a gay person and he fell in love with another man, but unfortunately he's not allowed to see him because of the whole split personality thing. So that gives him a reason for wanting to take control. But mainly Derek, who is the leader of this whole revolution kind of thing, who wants to take full control, he's actually manipulating these other 2 personalities in order to take control of Jack's body, so that he can actually take control of it himself. And as you can see, each of the following key points are exactly how I stated, and of course this is how I'm going to be filming it most of all, like how I want to start up. Like I want to start out with Jack, then have a little bit with Derek, Kevin, just to show their motivations behind it, and then have one of Simon, and then have finally, possibly at the end of the movie, I can show Jack struggling on the surface just to see how it is, but figure out a way for them to actually come together, so that way some of them at least understand it, but also make sure that they have an equal amount of time to take control of the body. And what I'm mainly going to be doing is that I'm going to be making sure that I look directly at the camera as I'm speaking, just so that way I can keep the audience's attention, since I am going to give backstories to these characters. So I definitely feel like if I give a direct address vibe, it will keep the audience engaged with what exactly I have to say. But I will make sure I use a layer mask on Adobe Premiere Pro in order for me to have 2 of the personalities appear in one shot, so that way it can it can look like, even though it's going to be played by one person, which I'll explain a little bit more about later on, it's still going to look like 2 different characters are in the same room with each other. Yeah. So basically there's quite a few things that actually inspired me to work on this project. For instance, for as long as I can remember, I've always liked playing different characters, whether it's been mostly on stage, and giving them a unique vibe compared to the others. But I've also got a lot of inspiration from actual films and TV shows that talk about split personality in a unique way. For instance, for the MCU films, I really like the dynamic between Bruce Banner and the Hulk, which is kind of how I started to learn about split personality, but also watched a few videos of Smeagol and Gollum talking to each other in off time, because both of those examples are very well known split personalities. But also I managed to have a look at the 2017 movie Split, which I'll talk about later on in the pitch. Now of course, the main thing that actually inspired me to make sure I do a direct address film is that a few months ago I actually went to the Hub in order for me to get some ideas of how I can improve my acting skills, and the person there, I've forgotten her name, she recommended that I should do some video logs in order for me to actually keep up my acting skills and play different kind of characters, so that way it can show that I can play not just one type of character, but also like different types of characters, which fits into my next point because also I found the split personality very interesting to try out because it gives me that chance to actually try out my level as an actor really and figure out what kind of characters I can play really well. Now there's quite a few things I prepare for in order for me to get started with this project. For instance, during my research stage, I managed to have a look at a few specific viewings for the two specific techniques, which is direct address and split personality. For instance, I had a look at the Alan Bennett's Talking Heads episode, specifically the ones with Martin Freeman and Jodie Comer, because I know those actors very well and seen them in other projects. So I found that both of their episodes very interesting for what, and feel like I can add some of the elements that they used in their episodes and make sure I use that in my own project. But also I managed to have a look at the films Identity and Split because both of them do tackle split personality disorders in their own way, although Split basically discusses it more because that's the main focus of the movie, whereas Identity is kind of like a twist ending that the split personalities in it. Yeah, but I also made sure to have a look at specific lighting techniques I can use when I'm going to be filming my project because that way I can figure out how exactly I want it to look, and so that way when the characters are talking to the camera they can actually make sure they look very visible and not too bright or too dark, depending on how I want their settings to look, which I will discuss later on in this pitch. And then finally, I've managed to make sure to do my own research about typing up my own script and also basically setting up a camera on my own to record my footage, because I will be mostly doing all that stuff by myself really, so that way I can actually, when I actually get done with my research task, I can actually get a chance to understand what exactly I have to do within these two stages. And then, of course, I did manage to have a look at some film festival websites in order for me to actually share my project with, because that way it gets me more public feedback with it, because most of my projects I've only gotten like feedback from fellow students about what I did, but I feel like I could give, if I get more public feedback, I'll be able to understand like how it looks creatively and uniquely compared to other direct address and split personality projects. Yeah, and this is an example of how exactly it's got to be set up for one of the film festival websites I looked at. And also, one minor note, I did make sure for an additional research, I did try to figure out what kind of voices and postures I can do by myself, so that way I'll be able to understand which exact characters I can play and how I can make them different to one another. Now there's one place that I really would like to make sure I film this project, and that is, of course, making sure I really want to make sure I film this in the actual TV studio in college, because that way I can make sure to set it up like it looks like it's in a sitting room, but also make sure it looks like it takes place inside Jack's mind where the other personalities are, so that way it can have that vibe of saying like, look very interesting, like it's kind of like, looks one way, but it's actually the other. So I feel like it could be very good for me to do for my project. But also, I really want to make sure, but also, as I've stated, I will be playing each of the personalities, because even though there's going to be like two different people playing the personalities, I really feel like it will take place within one body, but have separate minds really, which is what I'm going to be doing. So it is different people, but it's going to be this, but they're in the same body really, which is why I would be playing each of the roles myself. I would like to make sure that the school technician is in there who has access to the TV stereo in order for me to set up the lighting, so that way I understand like where exactly I want to be positioned for when I'm filming each of the footage I want to do, so that way I can make sure that my footage is not too dark or too bright for me to view. also make sure that the setting looks very accurate to how I envisioned it. And basically the whole duration that I vaguely want the film to be is around about 10 to 12 minutes, because it gives me enough time to explain each of the characters' backstory, but also try to figure out a clear timeline of where I want to get to point A to point B. So that's how I feel like that will be a minimum amount of time I want to be doing it. I might change it later on, but that's vaguely how I want the film to be, how long I want the film to be. Now there's quite a few things I will need in order for me to film my project. For instance, I'm going to need access to the TV studio, as I've already stated, but also I'm going to need costumes for each of the characters to tell, so that way it shows it's different characters. For instance, each of them is going to have their own t-shirt. Kevin is going to be having a leather jacket to show he's a tough character, whereas each of the personalities will at least have one or different types of trousers or slash jeans, so that way, just like I've already stated, it can show that it's one person or it's different characters really. But also, I do plan to have at least 2 or 3 shirts for each of them. For instance, I'm going to make sure that Derek has a dark shirt to show that he's the real bad guy in the movie, whereas I'm going to give Jack a much lighter shirt just to show he's the good person out of the movie, and you want just to show the dynamic between the 2 characters. But most importantly, I'm going to make sure that both of them have their own hoodies as well, because I'm going to give Jack a black, light blue hoodie, and obviously give Derek a dark hoodie, like I said, just to show the dynamic between the 2 characters, really. I also like to make sure I at least get access to a couple of props. For instance, I could get a table to make it look like it's in a sitting room setting, which I could get in my actual classroom if my teachers allow me to, but also can get some photo frame with a picture of me inside it and a drinking glass from her, in order for me to make it have that homey vibe before I show the dynamic picture, to show the setting inside Jack's head really, which I would like to work on. Now there's quite a few specific target audience that I like to aim for. For instance, for my primary target audience, I want to aim for children and teenagers between 12 and 17 years old. But there's quite a few categories that fit under. For instance, in the socio-economic grade, it's a social grade E, which is basically not only for casual workers, but also teenagers and students, which is basically the roundabout age group, between the roundabout group for the target audience I want to do here, but also for the psychographic category, which is for explorers and strugglers, because explorers really like to watch new kind of products, and strugglers really like to are a bit nervous about talking about certain subjects. So I feel like this could, if they're going through similar situations of what this project is about, it can hopefully get them out of their comfort zone properly, if I demonstrate correctly. But mainly, I'm going for the generational category is going to be for Generation Z, which are people born between 1996 to the present. Now, as I've already stated, they are going to be the most, I feel like it fits this target audience because it's the most amount of people who are interested in new products, but also because I feel like they don't know too much about split personality, so I feel like if I explain a little bit about it, it'll get them interested in this topic, so that way they can find out more information about it or see how it's represented. However, the secondary target audience, I also want to make sure that if I rate it, I'm going to make sure it's within this primary target audience, because I want to make sure that all the stuff I said isn't too deep or stuff, so that way I know exactly what words and dialogue actually say between the characters. Now for my secondary target audience, I'm going to make sure I aim it between 18 to 35-year-olds, because they are mainly the people who are also interested in new products, but also they match the socio-economic grade for social grade B and C1, which is with middle class and lower class, but it's also for teachers and social care workers, which are actually people who want to teach people about new things, so they'll probably understand a little bit about this kind of topic that I'm talking about. Whereas in the psychographic category, it's going to be for reformers because they're completely neutral people who have. They are completely neutral people that understand. They are completely neutral people who like seeing new products that are actually good for them and therefore won't be too affected by it, but will be interested in the topics I have to say, which is kind of what I think matches the age group for this category. And then finally, in the generational category, it's going to be for Generation Y, millennials, I think that's how you say it, because that's for people who were born between 1977 and 1975. Now, as I've already stated, I feel like they are also the people who are interested in seeing new products, but also understand a little bit about this personality disorder, but mainly because they actually, I feel like this age group really likes watching dramatic products because they find it very interesting and engaging to watch. So I feel like they'll definitely be interested in the product I'm talking about. Now, there's quite a few equipment that I'll need in order for me to film this project. For instance, I'm going to need a XF100 camera in order for me to film all my footage to make sure it's perfectly clear. But I'm also going to need a Zoom recorder to record all my audio separately, because that way depending on where exactly I position the camera, it'll still sound clear and loud enough for me to hear in my actual footage, so that way it's not, when I'm talking from a distance, it can still be heard from. It can still be heard in the actual film itself. Now also I'll be needing a tripod in order for me to make sure that my camera is completely stable as I'm recording, but also make sure that it's in a exact position I want to use, so that way it's not wobbly or tilted as I'm filming. So yeah, I'll definitely be needing a tripod in order for me to make sure I film and understand where I want the camera to be set up. Then in the actual TV studio itself, I will need the different type of lights. For instance, I'm going to be using a stand spotlight in order for me to put in the hair light position, which is one of the techniques that I actually used while I was doing my lighting techniques research, so that way it can actually be positioned right above me, but also use the quartz floodlights and see which one of them actually looks better in the hair light position, because they're kind of positioned at near the ceiling of the TV studio, and I just want to make sure to see which one of them actually looks better to put in the hair light position, so that way I understand whether it's too bright or too dark. So I definitely can have one of those options. But mainly I'll be using the studio panel LED lights because that can easily be positioned, moved around in different areas. But also I can make sure to put it in the key light position, which is right next to the camera, but also in the fill light position, which I can position away from the camera in order for me to fill out the area I'm going to be filming in.
Lewis, you've got about 5 minutes, alright?
Okay.
Yeah?
No problem. Yeah, so there are quite a few things that I plan to do next. For instance, I'm going to make sure that I complete my check on my total questionnaire responses, which I carried out a few weeks ago before the Easter holidays, and hopefully see what the overall conclusion is. But the questionnaire itself managed to talk about the key topics I want to include in my project, so that way I can make sure to actually use this information. But I'll also be carrying out 1 or 2 interviews from actual actors within the acting industry and get feedback of how exactly I can portray, do my direct address techniques in order for me to keep focus without haircutting, which is sometimes a bit difficult for me to do, but also make sure I demonstrate the split personality as well, like make sure that each characters are given their unique voices, really, because I feel like if I get more information about that, I can go with this direction or that direction. but I'll also make sure to complete some of the research tasks that I partially completed over the Easter holidays, because some of them do need a little bit more.
Okay, we're recording, so this is part 2 of Lewis's presentation pitch.
As I've already stated, these are kind of the key stuff that I want to do when I actually, after I've done this task for my pitch, but also I want to make sure that once I actually rehearse my script, I at least get a chance to actually film my project, which will probably take me around about 3 days to do, but we'll make sure to figure out if there's any stuff that I didn't get done. I will make sure I get time to reshoot that, or any parts that I didn't like this look up in the original footage, I'll make sure to refilm that as well. So I'll make sure that if there's anything that I want to refilm, I'll make sure to try to put that in with the school technicians and my teachers as soon as I can. And then finally, there's quite a few skills that I want to do. I feel like there's quite a few certain skills that I will improve on within this actual project. For instance, as I've demonstrated throughout this project pitch, I feel like this is going to help me develop my acting skills, because sometimes, as I said, it's a little bit difficult for me to look directly at the camera, but I figure hopefully within this all research task I do, I feel like I'll be able to improve that bit, and also feel like but also make sure that I can portray more than one type of character within one project, but also help me understand a little bit about the production design roles, but also the lighting techniques roles within the media industry, so that way if I decide to do that, if I actually decide to go within the media industry, I'll be able to understand a lot more about the other roles that I didn't know too much about. But as I've already demonstrated, I feel like this is going to help me develop my skills as an actor by portraying more than one type of character, so that way when I go into the acting industries, I can try to see if I can do this type of character or this type of character, rather than just this type of character throughout my acting industry's career. But finally, I've come up with a production report for how I want this production to look. For instance, I'm going to be making sure I film within the 180-degree rule, so that way the cameras are positioned in one specific area, rather than just having one camera just filmed there, because I feel like that's going to be a bit confusing for the audience. However, I will also this is what the costumes are going to look like. For instance, this is how Jack is going to look with his costume. As you can see, he's got the white blue hoodie and the white shirt. And Derek has got the dark blue hoodie on, and as you can see, he's got this very smug look on his face, just to show that he's a mastermind, but also a manipulator, as you can see here. And then finally, there's Kevin's costume here, because as you can see, he's wearing the leather jacket and dark clothing, just to show he's the most deadliest and dangerous compared to the other split personalities. As you can see here, these are the specific audio examples for my actual her that I would like to include in my project, but I feel like there's not enough time to play.
Please play us a snippet 1 so we can hear what it is.
Okay.
This is the type of music.
Yeah, it's kind of going to be, it's going to give it like a very dramatic kind of vibe, so that's why I decided to go with this kind of music. So yeah, I definitely feel like if the characters are having a very serious monologue, I could play this kind of music over it, whereas the other ones are kind of a little bit more dramatic and action-packed, which is something that I could use with this very tense situation going on, like when Jack is starting to lose his grip on his control compared to the other split personalities. And then finally, this is supposed to be like a test shot video of how I want the director of this film to be about, because as you can see, this is kind of like the short little sneak peek of how Jack is like with his split personalities, but unfortunately I have tested it out before I did the pitch today, and I don't think it can be able to be played on the slideshow, so I'll just skip that for now. Well, thank you so much for listening to my pitch today. I hope you enjoyed it, and does anybody have any further questions they would like to say?
Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you, Lewis, very much.
Well done. Yeah, a couple of questions then.
Do you have any potential titles for the film?
I have tried to think about it, and I want to make sure it's given its own unique title. But the only one I really come up with is Me, Myself, and I. But I feel like that's been done so many times, and after looking at so many other titles like Identity and Split, there's not really too much I can go with, but I can definitely try to test it, ask around to see what kind of titles I could possibly use.
Rather than just asking around, use it to your benefit. So maybe when you've made your script, you could hold a focus group of people in your target audience, get them to read the script and then say, right, what would you expect this film to be called? So that might be a way of getting some other artistic input. Yeah?
I just had a question about the ending, because I was a bit unclear about how it ends, because obviously my understanding is it is multi-personality and they are battling for control. Then does someone win at the end, or do they all reconcile at the end?
I can feel like right now I kind of want to have it like Jack tries to persuade, they all come to an understanding, because I feel like Kevin and Simon will recognize that Derek is just manipulating, so that way he can get full control. So Jack then comes up with a way for them to actually take control of their body, and then I feel like each of them, then it feels like the whole thing, that the reason that his body is unstable is because each of the split personalities should get a chance to live their lives.
To come to the fore. Right.
Yes.
Okay. So in the end, they kind of agree that they'll take it in turns. So
Yes.
that will be in the script, that they come to this and they kind of all kind of merge back into one person with them coming in and out.
Exactly.
This may seem like a silly question, but you've obviously identified the different costumes for each of the personalities. Are we going to see the physical costume change on screen to represent the battle of one character or one personality, leaving, the other one arriving, or is it going to be cut and then?
It's going to be cut between, because I feel like most of the monologue parts are going to be one shot, and then after that monologue's done, I could probably just fade to black and then fade back in, just to show the transitions between characters, because that way it can show like when one character is on screen, then another character is on screen.
My only reason, I don't know how Sarah feels about this, but the costume, because it's like simply jackets or hats or whatever, is because obviously in split personality syndrome it's not that fluid, is it? It isn't one personality leaves and the other one arrives. There are these moments where there's a tug of war of such. So by just having the face black and then here's the next character, I'm not sure if that sends out the right message.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. You mentioned about having this technique where you have more than one character on the screen at the same time, yeah? And what did you refer to it as?
Layer mask.
Yeah, the layer mask, right? So if you had that, I just think it'd be quite interesting to have maybe, how many characters are in total? 3?
4.
4.
3 personalities and one.
So one, but you could have the 4
all on screen.
All on screen at one time, for some of it, all dressed in their different clothes, and they're kind of having that disagreement, and then you go to cut close up where you have a certain character and they take precedence and they're talking. So you kind of have an idea that they all exist, but then you focus on each one, and then you
kind of like multi-image in music video. You know, you have 4, so we see all 4 band members, and then the main one pops up, and then we go back to the 4 band members. I think that would work much better. I think it gives your films something else other than just someone simply talking to the camera.
Because talking heads, which is just your head and shoulder shot talking to camera, is just going to feel very, very samey after a while, especially
because you said 10 to 12 minutes.
10
My
to 12
instant thought
minutes.
was, I'm going to switch off after a couple of minutes if it's just a character talking at the screen.
And if you can't grab hold of one of the characters because they keep switching, that's quite difficult. But if you've got an interaction between the characters, then I think that becomes really exciting.
Because there could be a moment where we see all 4, then we might see, sorry if I get the names wrong, but Derek might come, then quickly he snaps away from the screen and we see the other character come, because it shows that the battle between what's going on in his head.
And then as well, you can have them turning around to talk to the viewer, the audience, and trying to get their attention. So they're all kind of vying for the audience.
And also
that
talking to each other. So me and Sarah on the split screen, we might...
And then we turn around and we both want, the viewer to listen to them. No, listen to me. No, listen to me. No, you had last week.
I think that would work much better.
Then you get the interaction, and it'd be really visually interesting.
And it's asking for you to be a
concept.
lot more clever with your scripting, because you need to script in all these moments where they're talking to each other, then back to the camera. What I don't want, Lewis, and I know Sarah agrees, I don't want you just putting the camera on the tripod and you talking to the camera.
Yeah.
That's not level 3.
I don't think it's going to stretch you enough, and
No.
it won't be interesting enough.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do need to think of these technical elements of how to make this a level 3 and not a level 2 project. So yeah, definitely we need some more technical
But
elements.
I think that would be so exciting.
I do.
to
I think it'd be
see.
great.
I loved your 3 pictures of your characters. Just even the way that one of them was like that,
Yeah.
the body language. I could see 3 characters, but I'd love to see them interacting.
Yeah.
So I think that would work.
Because you could
really well.
even be, this is just my brain going crazy, but you could even be clever with the colour grade. You might decide to have some in black and white and the other one in colour when it's their turn,
I could
just to make it a little bit more interesting.
I wanted to know a little bit about the TV studio.
Yeah, I've got massive questions about
Yeah,
that.
because obviously it'd be a big job to create what looks like a real sitting room in the TV studio, you know, or was your idea to make it look like a sitting room, or is it to look very minimalist, almost like a spotlight and then just a sofa, a table, a bookshelf, just almost an indication like a theatre setup of a set in the TV studio? Is that your idea, or is it to make it look like a sitting room?
Kind of, yeah, it's definitely the second one, because I definitely feel like it gives the theatrical kind of element, really, which is something I definitely want to go for within these characters, just to show that it's gonna, it kind of like helps transition between like the.
Okay, so dark all around, and then just these specific furniture pieces.
Exactly.
Where are you going to get a sofa from? Where are you going to get a coffee table from? To bring, you know, to you know, even if they're just a few key pieces.
Well, I didn't really want to bring a sofa with me. I just thought about just getting at least like like if I get like a table from the actual classroom itself and just make it look like it's a sitting room table, that would be interesting enough for me. But I could, like I've already said, I could make sure to get at least a photo frame and then just to show that it gives it a homey kind of vibe, just to show that it is supposed to kind of take place inside a house.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, but are you pushing towards that you want it to be a living room, record it in a living room?
Yeah.
Why are you trying to create a living room in a TV studio that's a TV studio, unless you're trying to make it feel...
You could go in 2 ways. You either shoot at home and use your sitting room, because it's a sitting room, and then you save yourself a bother, you can concentrate your energies on something else. Or if you want a very like theatre look, where you literally have black curtains all around, and then you just have a sofa piece of furniture, a coffee table and stuff like that, then you can do that, but you have to go and be really smart about it. Now, the college always used to have storage cupboards where there would be certain pieces of furniture around. Now, they might have been cleared out because of our rebuild.
It's usually the hub,
Yeah.
you use the sofas in the hub.
So things like that they might all be gone. But I would find out that question if you do want that theatre, and just see if it's realistic. Because like you say, you can't bring a sofa into college very easily. So you could just find out if that's an option, and then again, you know, you need to decide, because visually, either way, it's going to make a big difference of how it might look.
And
I think that needs to be resolved.
I know this was just a flippant comment, but avoid saying that's good enough for me, because you want the best.
Yeah.
So a table from here does not look like a table from a living room.
No.
So we need a table that looks like a living room if that's what you want it to be. So you want the best. So
Because visually on screen, it's going to have such an impact.
yes, it's going to look like a classroom table unless you make it otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it needs to have an aesthetic, a certain look to it.
Completely. Just the last point, you mentioned about Michael being in the studio to do the lighting basically. You need to book in a one-to-one with Michael to learn how to use the lighting. Michael can support you, but you will do your lighting plans. All Michael will do is say, can I have your lighting plan? You would show him your setup and he'll support you in setting that up. It's your ideas and your plan though.
Yeah, I think Michael will position the floodlights, because they're not allowed to.
Yeah, those
to
ones,
touch
but
them.
nothing else. That's
But
all
your
on you.
LEDs are all
Yes.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they'll be positioned by you. And also, you mentioned 10 to 12 minute duration, and in terms of, just so you know, it will be a page per minute script. So if you are 10 to 12 minutes film, then it should be 10 to 12 pages script, just so you're aware.
Okay.
Okay, even if there's quite a lot of, even if there is quite a lot of dialogue, it should still work that way. Okay, and even if there's a lot of description, it should still work. That's a rough guide.
Okay, just to summarise, because we do need to move on. Book a one-to-one with Michael to learn the lighting setup. Consider your set design. That's a massive form of research you need to start looking into. Consider a focus group once your script is created to help you decide on the title. Consider the use of multi-screen. Use this as a transition point and return to this screen throughout the short film. This is of course going to call for more research. You need to research into split screen or multi-screen. Research into colour grading, how this can be used effectively to reflect different personalities. And I would say consider your duration. I think 5 minutes is more than enough.
Yeah, you might need to cut that down. I agree with that. And also, in terms of distribution, I'd also needed to be a bit clearer. You mentioned film festivals, but also I might have missed it. But in terms of platforms, where will this film be seen? I need to have a better idea of who will be watching it. I don't think you should target it at, you know, people for the purpose of informing. You mentioned kind of adults and people that might need to know about this subject matter. I can't see it being a kind of educational, informative film. It's more of a creative, entertaining exploration film. So I think be clear, it's for entertainment. It's about an interesting concept rather than let's tell you about what dissociative personality disorder is about.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Well done, Lewis.
Thank you.
Well done. A very detailed presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So you're going to